evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see you all here tonight. It's been a while since we've had real in-person book launches, and I can't begin to tell you how much we miss them. So thank you for being here this evening. Thank you to Kate for joining us, and of course our esteemed author, Fiona Snickers. It's always lovely to launch a book with you. I just want to say thank you to Exclusive Books for organising this launch, to Simone and her staff, to the technical team, thank you very much, and to Keris at head office who's not here this evening. Thank you very much to them. A big thank you to Njaja Books, the publisher of Fiona's book, The School Gates. For those that don't know, but I'm sure you do, Fiona has written 8 novels across multiple genres. In 2020, she won the South African Literary Award for Best Novel in the NIHSS Humanities Award, which we're all very, very proud of. She's been nominated for the Sunday Times Fiction Prize 5 times, and School Gates is her most recent work. So well done and congratulations again, Fiona. For those that need to know a little bit about Kate, she's a writer, author, co-writer, and also ghostwriter of 8 books. It's so funny when I thought, how am I going to remember who's written how many books? And they both have done 8. Kate also reviews books for the Sunday Times and other media. She's worked in magazines, newspapers, as a columnist and feature writer. Kate is also the one half of the Katie Gale with Gail Schimmel, the writing partnership that publishes the series of Cozy Mysteries that is in the UK. So we're very, very proud of Kate and Gail Schimmel for all those achievements. Kate did make me chuckle because she said in the context of this launch, she has 2 kids that are blessedly no longer at school. So with no further ado, welcome both of you, and we're really looking forward to listening to the conversation. I just also want to advise that we are doing something brand new here this evening. We are live streaming direct to YouTube. So we're really hoping that people that couldn't be with us, not just from Johannesburg, from other parts of the country, are tuning in. I know somebody in Cape Town who has diarised it, so it'll be interesting to see tomorrow morning how many views we get from this whole exercise. So, all welcome. Please give a big hand for Fiona and Kate.
Thank you very much, Helen, and welcome to everybody. It's really so great to be in person again. I know it was quite weird for everyone coming out at night and trying to find your way around Johannesburg in the dark, coming here in your face masks and that's okay, but I'm hoping that it's something that we'll get used to and have more of. And it's such a treat always to celebrate the launch of a new Fiona Snickers novel, the 8th. I mean, between the two of us, it's not even a lot more richer than the 16 books. 16 books. But yeah, I mean, Fiona is really one of the most talented and versatile novelists, and it's always, as I say, always lovely to read and welcome the books. There's no great spoiler here to tell you that this book takes place in and around the school. Working in school and parents in school, children in school, and so on. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about the school. It's a high stakes, high performing for-profit listed on the JSE, the book tells us. And it's the setting of the school, all sorts of things brought together by the school. And I wondered, Fiona, why you decided to set a novel here and what it was about the school setting, what it does for you as an author to set a novel in a school.
Well, it really was just a matter of time. I've been living in the trenches as a private school parent for the last many years. I have 3 children, one of whom is still going through the private school system. And I saw and heard of so many fascinating and sometimes unbelievable things and it was a lot of fun to do. And as you, I think we're saying, there's an established cast of characters when you set a book in a school. There are the teachers, there are the parents, there are the kids themselves. And I chose to make it a primary school setting because in my experience, parents are more intense about primary school kids than at any other time of the kids' lives. I think when kids grow up and become teenagers and go to high school, they kind of almost violently rip themselves away from us and establish their own identity. So we really can't cling to the illusion anymore that our children are an extension of us. It's easier to do when they are little and small, and everything that they do seems to be a reflection of us as parents. So yeah, that's why I decided to set it in that primary school session.
I wondered when I read the book whether there was some kind of initiating incident. I imagined you sort of leaving school and sort of slamming your hand down on the dashboard and going, "That's it, I wrote you." But it is interesting, a school setting, and we'll talk a little more about some of those going forward things, I think, as we get through. And it does feel like your life is some preparation for that. I wanted to just bring up, before we do a bit of a reading, your main character. There's a saying that some things I just said, which I use, which is that there are only two stories. A man goes on a journey and a stranger comes to town, which are, in a sense, the same story, so that makes it one story. So the stranger that comes to town in your book is Ella. And I think maybe we could talk a little bit about her just before we read. And I think she is our window into that world, and she is a stranger, and that she doesn't have those children yet, and so on. So she comes sort of serendipitously into that world, and she has even more higher knowledge of it. Would you like to just talk a little bit about Ella and how she came to be there, and a little bit about her backstory, that relevant in terms of the themes and so on?
Right. Well, I set her up as a character years ago. In 2014, my book, Now Following You, came out. And in that book, I established three sisters. The one, Jane Birchall, was the part owner of the restaurant, and she was the main character of Now Following You. Then there was her sister Caroline, who was a medical doctor. And at that stage, I just knew I was going to write a novel about each sister. And I set them up in their professions, but I didn't quite know where I was going with it. So Caroline Birchall, the doctor, ended up being the main character of my book, Spire. And then Ella, I set her up as a prima ballerina, an international, very well-known dancer. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with her until that dashboard slamming moment that you referred to, where it was more like a death by 1,000 cuts. There were several exciting incidents that made me realize I had to set a book in a private school. And I thought, yeah, great idea. Ella, she's burned out from being a professional dancer. She's got all sorts of problems. She's escaping from a controlling, almost abusive relationship. She's got an eating disorder, and she's come to town to kind of get away from it all. And she gets a job teaching dancing at the school. So that was the sort of setup, and then I took it from there.
Yeah, I thought it was very clever actually to set to kids very far away
Okay, sure. So the passage I've chosen takes place just after Ella has attended her first compulsory PTA meeting. And the chairlady of the PTA invited her around for a drink after the meeting. And she thought it was literally going to be a drink. And it turned out to be this massive, expensive, catered affair where she kind of drank too much and slightly tossed her name away and is now feeling a bit embarrassed the morning after. And she's talking to Ashton, the good-looking cricket coach, who's also a scientist, and she's sort of establishing a friendship with him. And they are at his house. He's cooking because his nephews are coming over, and they're chatting about the night before. So Ella says, "Are you telling me they do this regularly? Heather Renwick invited me for a drink after the PTA meeting. I thought she'd crack open a bottle of supermarket wine and maybe put out some crisps. This was a professionally catered affair. There was vintage champagne and a seafood buffet. It must have cost them in the region of 30,000 rand. Oh, more, said Ashton, probably quite a bit more. I went to one of those parties last year. There was a craft beer table that would have put the Munich Beer Festival to shame, and French wine, and imported cheese, and sausages, and truffles. When I thought about what it must have cost, I wanted to lie down. Luckily, I had to leave after one beer. Or perhaps unluckily, I've never been sure which. I wish I'd left after one glass of champagne, said Ella. And now I feel bad because there's no way I can repay hospitality like that. I mean, I can invite the wedding to my cottage for dinner, but it won't be in the same week. Ashton chopped onion, garlic, and carrots and threw them into a pot. I know, the Renwicks are in need of their own. Ella stood up and began to pace. I feel like the balance of power has shifted. Yesterday, I was the cool new ballet teacher, and now I'm just the idiot who won the limbo competition and did 3 shots of tequila. A grin bisected Ashton's face. The limbo competition? Yes, I can see that. Oh, hush, said Ella. This is serious. Okay, I'll be serious. He dumped a pack of beef bits and canned tomatoes into the pot. Allow me to mansplain. Do you watch mafia movies at all? What, said Ella, like Goodfellas? I've seen a few. Then you'll know what I'm talking about, said Ashton. Heather Renwick is the capo di tutti I capi. You know what that means? Sure, said Ella, the big cheese, the head of all the heads. Correct, said Ashton, and you are the poor honest underling who has something that she wants. You won't give it to her, she has principles. So she does something for you. Maybe she pays for your sick kid to have treatment, or sends your eldest child to university, or in your case, fills you up with prawns and champagne. Are you with me so far? I guess, said Ella. So, said Ashton, when you accept the unexpected gift, she gives you a kiss on the cheek to seal the deal. Il bacio. And at that moment, you become a made man. You now owe her a favor, and your own sense of honor will compel you to pay the debt. Ella touched her cheek. Heather did kiss me last night, right here. There you go, said Ashton. You're a made man. Don't laugh, it's true. That made her laugh even more. What could I possibly have that she wants? I can't even repay her hospitality. You, said Ashton, have the power to do things for her children. She wants you, a prima ballerina, to be her own personal meat puppet. That's not how ballet works, said Ella. It's how everything works, said Ashton. Ballet is a meritocracy, she said. Forgive my skepticism, said Ashton, but nothing is a meritocracy when there's enough money involved.
Very nice, thank you. That was such an apt piece to read, because I was thinking when I was doing these questions how much this book is about power and about access to power. And one of the things that I liked in this book is how you managed to incorporate so many themes that are actually very current and connectable. And knowing your work, you like to the books, particularly, and social media, we obviously feel thoughtful around the issues of social and political issues. And this book, we actually managed to touch on so much of this sort of civil rights puzzle. And one of the things that's really about class and race and access and money and all of it. And I wonder how you balance those kind of things. You don't want to overwhelm the story. It's essentially a fairly, it's supposed to be a lightish read. So how do you think about this as an interesting?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I feel like in the book I balance them very nicely, and it's a fun, humorous book. It's not a sort of stodgy read. But lately in interviews, I've been getting so hit up about the social issues that I think people have come away thinking that this is really a very heavy and intimidating book. So somehow in interviews I need to learn to balance the idea that, you know, this is humor, it's satire, it isn't to be taken terribly seriously, but yes, there are several important issues. And one of them, as you said, is privilege and access to privilege. And I think it's a feature of privileged people that they believe it's a zero-sum game, that we can't expand the privilege too much. We can't allow too many people in because there won't be enough to go around. You know, it's not okay everybody's child succeeds. In order for my child to shine, there have to be children who fail and do badly and should be compared against and are outshone. So it's very much, it's a competitive space where there's this belief that there's not enough to go around, that there's a scarcity when it comes to achievement. And I think particularly in South Africa, there are certain white parents who have felt very threatened by having parents of other colour around, and they act in exclusionary ways. They sort of try to keep them out. And that's why a lot of PTAs in schools like this are still as white as they ever were. The school moms, the class moms, as they call, are all white. The governing body is all white, and it hasn't been that sort of trickle down or lifting other people up. There's been this kind of grim determination to keep people out because there's not enough room for everybody. And I don't believe in that kind of zero-sum game.
Yeah, I mean, it is about hanging on to what you've got. But I also think when we were talking about, you know, how parents are with their children, you brought this up on Facebook. I actually asked the question, there were such interesting answers about why it is so difficult. And I was connecting that to this idea of privilege. And I think when you have something, when you're used to having something, used to having what you want, it's almost intolerable for children not to have it, not to have everything they want. And I mean, we find it really hard to accept that, you know, sometimes they have some things and not others. I was thinking of when my kids were smaller, I didn't realize what we were in for being and doing them out of the van as a child in grade 7. Was telling me how his child had been left out of a squad of team cricket team. The team was going to be going to squad. And then particularly if you have a really exposed at 11. Yeah, and then and this comes particularly very critical. So, as it was really, when to speak to the headmaster, I was waiting for the bit when he sort of acknowledged that this is ridiculous and outrageous. I thought this was a joke. It got to the bit where I was thinking to my head. And I think that's what it is as well. It's that game of the way. And obviously, I think, you know, I mean, maybe we talk about what people say. I mean, that's actually that in terms of why people are, why it is to separate the children, why it's so important to sort of like, because actually, it objectively really isn't.
Especially not when they're 9 and grade 14. Yeah, it was interesting because people of our generation who are moms now and have kids in school, private or public school, it really doesn't matter. They get it, they understand it. But people who remember their own parents in the 70s and 80s will say, oh, my parents didn't even know the name of my teacher. They never went to a prize giving. They never went to a parent-teacher conference.
Which I want to see the canisters or something.
Yes. And they didn't follow up on my homework or sort of pressurized me to be in the A team or whatever. It was such a different time. And that, I think, is the point. It was a different time, especially in South Africa, especially among the sort of middle-class white people, because there was no sense of threat or urgency. You knew that your position in the world was secure and your child's position in the world was secure. And they would get a good education, whether at a government school or a private school. They would go seamlessly into tertiary education. Their entry into the job market was basically guaranteed, and you expected them to have the same kind of life as you did. So there wasn't the tension of what will happen if my child falls behind. And now we live in a different world, and this is not just a South African phenomenon. I believe it exists in middle-class societies all over the world as a consequence of globalization. We all have this idea that it's a global marketplace out there, and that you are no longer just competing with your suburb or even your country. You are competing with the entire world, and that there are these other societies out there that are much more competitive and much more high achieving, and that they are the ones that your child is going to be fighting for a job one day. And I think it has generated this feeling of terrible anxiety and worry in the parent of what will happen to my child if he or she doesn't succeed. What will happen to them? And you know, we've seen the whole millennial generation living much more insecure lives than we Gen X or the Boomer generation ever did, and reparenting these Generation Z kids. And there's a lot of anxiety over, you know, what kind of world are they going to go into, and are they prepared enough for it? And I think this terribly anxious sort of nail-biting, what's going to happen to my kid, starting at a very young age, stems from that. And one of the replies I got from a mom who lives in America was that American parents worry about which preschool their kids are going to get into. That determines their whole future. At the age of 3, are you going to get into the preschool that is a sort of Ivy League track? You get on the track at the age of 3, which will take you to Ivy League or not. And if it's not, oh my goodness, you failed your child already at the age of 3. There's nothing left, kind of thing.
No, that's true. I think it's about access to scarce resources as well. But I think that everything sort of started when we were younger, and this idea that about what schooling is for. You know, and there's a sense, and you bring this out in your book with one particular sort of thread and character. The sort of idea almost that school is about building a CV from the very beginning. So it's not really about learning or teaching or getting skills or making friends or having a well-rounded something. It's really about ticking boxes and having something to put onto the CV. And I think that's changed a lot since it's related to what you're saying, obviously, about the scarcity of resources and competition and so on. But I don't think there was ever really that sense that, particularly in private school, kind of building anything other than learning to read. Something that would help you much when you ever look at the marks and think about what you've done.
I think they still don't, quite frankly. I don't think anybody cares whether you got into the under 11 B naval team or not.
I don't think they do. But I do think there's a different sense about it. I was wondering as well about this book, is that you wrote this book prior to COVID, and I read it during the as well, the subsequent during the pandemic. And I was wondering how these fictional parents of yours, these very overwhelmed parents of kids with extremely, that's the other thing that's doing, these extremely busy schedules, because it's so much to go into schools and a lot of kids. And they've got this punished schedules in young kids. And I wondered what those fictional parents and families would have made again what we're going through now, and also 24 hours for the kids, 12 hours a day for the kids, which I don't think is very much the case for us. Moms, although they were attached to their kids and care about them a lot. Second age plan. They also, they also give them on a time basis. What do you thought we did in this book at the time?
Yeah, I found it so interesting, as you say. I experienced it for myself. So when COVID hit, I still had 2 children in school and 1 at university. And even though I like to think I'm not an insane tiger mom, the children at school were nevertheless busy. They had a schedule, and I was every afternoon in my car, driving there, back to there. It was a very stressful schedule. It felt as though you were sort of running along with the thresher behind you, and if you stop even for a moment, the thresher would kind of gobble you up. And COVID made everything stop. It forced everything to stop. And it forced that anxiety to go away. You didn't have to worry about whether your child got into the first rugby team, because nobody's child got into the first rugby team. There was no first rugby team. Everything just stopped. And that comparing yourself, constantly jockeying for position against other families also stopped, because we were all just in our homes. And there was no way to sort of know how the Joneses were getting along. And, you know, obviously it was a very complicated thing, but there was a short while in which I think the kids could breathe a huge sigh of relief. I mean, school would start at 8:15 and my child would set her alarm for 8:13 and just sort of flip on the switch and, you know, open her eyelids and sort of log on to Google Classroom to attend class. And it was just a much more relaxed way of life, and it just took away all that stress, and obviously introduced a whole bunch of other problems as well. But I almost think that there will be a reluctance among families to go back to that hectic schedule. I feel a deep reluctance myself to get back in my car and spend every afternoon schlepping hither and thither between extramurals. You know, what can stay online, please stay online, so we don't have to spend all that time in the car. Okay, I'm lazy, yes.
Look, it's interesting. I wonder how that. And I mean, obviously things will change, because of the regulations and so on. But as I said, internal motivations, why people, it's one of those things. The way it's done, everyone really get to make. Once you've got on the path of schooling, where you decide to, or Montessori, whatever, some homeschooling, it's a different thing. But once you kind of funneled yourself into that thing, you're pretty much committed to that, unless you make some big bold decisions not to do it. So it's really nice to have new perspective. I wonder, did you feel sorry for the parents? I think it comes often from a place of love, and deeply buried, all sorts of kind of messed up emotions. Did you feel that about them?
I did, because I could relate to them. I wasn't writing from the position of an outsider. In many ways, I was that parent. I have felt that anxiety. I've felt that worry of, oh my goodness, everybody else's child is doing so much, and my child is only doing this one thing. It's not good enough, they'll fall behind, we've got to sort of get into competition with everybody else. I'm familiar with that anxiety. I felt it myself. At some point, I just kind of shook myself and thought, no way, this is insane, this is completely crazy. Children of that age should not be having 14-hour days. It's nuts. It was very much an insider's perspective, and therefore, yes, I do have understanding and compassion for even the craziest, most exaggerated parents, like, exist as characters in this book. But I do know where they're coming from, and I think that the life they've chosen is not an easy one. It's a very anxious one.
But even there are characters in the book. I wanted to ask you a little bit about what it's like writing across such different genres. It's really sad. I wondered if you write books simultaneously, how you separate that, or if you move from one to another, and what you like to write the best, what's the most different sense?
Oh, that's almost impossible to answer, but I think because I like to read across genres, I don't want to only write in one genre. I think I would get bored if I did that. So I'm a fairly wide, eclectic reader, and therefore have stories buzzing in my head that come from all different genres, including literary. And in terms of how I divide it up, I have in the past, and actually am now, working on more than one book at a time. And I use, probably a lot of you are familiar with the Pomodoro method, where you set a timer for half an hour or an hour, whatever it might be, and you work on one project for that amount of time, and you're not allowed to carry on after the buzzer goes. So you've got that limited amount of time to work on this project. Then take a break, set the timer again, and now you go half an hour to work only on that project. And I find that, that enables me to sort of switch gears between different genres, different stories, different characters. It's not easy by any means, and COVID has knocked my productivity quite badly. I just, for a while, they found it so difficult to concentrate. There was so much horror, there is so much horror in the world, and it's hard to switch that off and concentrate on a fictional world of characters. But I know you and Gail have done it amazingly during COVID. I'm actually in awe of your productivity. But yeah, it's not easy to switch off all the horrors of the world.
It's really not, and I think you're lucky at certain points it can feel like a kind of a sanity save to go into that other world that you created, that sort of fictional world, and take you away from it. But it is, there are so many demands on our attention. A lot of them are really not lovely at all. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're looking at the moment, or is that not something that you does it make you feel like just too funny?
I'd never like to go into too much detail because I feel as though if I explain the story, then my hunger to write the story kind of dissipates. I no longer feel that urgency to write it down because I've already explained the story to somebody. So, no, it's okay. You probably are aware that I also self-publish books on Amazon Kindle. Yes. So I have a series of, two series of cozy mysteries going at the moment. So I'm busy writing one of those, and I'm writing a sequel to a book that hasn't come out yet. In fact, it's on submission. My agent is submitting it to publishers hopefully as we speak. What else? Oh, right, yes, my sort of new Lacuna type book. I'm writing a new book of literary fiction. It might go nowhere, I don't know, but it feels nice to be back in that literary space again.
Well, that's very good news. A lot for us all to look forward to. I have no idea. I think like Q&A time. Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah, would anyone like to ask your questions, maybe comments?
I think that Helen's going to bring the mic around, so if anyone wants to ask something, then for the sake of the recording, Helen will bring the mic to you.
I have another question actually. Let me ask a question. How exposing it got to you to write about that sort of school. I think does your husband have to so not in the private school. Do you explain?
A bit, yes. I'm a little bit concerned about some reactions that might still be coming my way, but I also find that people often don't recognize themselves in books. They, especially if someone is the baddie, nobody really thinks that they're the baddie. Definitely not. So, yeah, I think that people will sort of keep a distance and maybe hopefully laugh with me and sort of see the baddies as someone else entirely. But yeah, it was a sort of some momentary concern, and my husband also sort of had a twinge of concern about how this was all going to be received. He did, yes.
Other people's questions? Anybody? Anyone? Yeah, sure.
We've been talking about the cause of these parents' sort of deranged involvement in their kids' lives. Do you think that part of it is a sense of living vicariously through their kid, their child being able to achieve things that they never got to?
Yes, I think it can be, and also if you were a sort of high achiever at school, you want your child at least to match you. Your child must at least be as successful as you were. And again, I think that's the reason why this is so particularly intense in the young years, because it's much easier to live vicariously through these very young children who don't have as much agency as they would have later on. So yes, also I said this on Facebook, I think that for mothers, having children really disrupts your own identity, your own sense of self, and you start to define yourself in terms of this creature that you are raising now, and what they do is a direct reflection on you, which also generates anxiety. And that led to a discussion with moms talking about, the age at which your child crawls or reaches this milestone or that milestone, which really means absolutely nothing whatsoever, but at the time can feel like a very important part of your own identity. So yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, that's a nice question. And I also think what's interesting about, particularly in this book, is that they're actually often acting against the best interests and desires of the children, even though they're acting the scarcity of their interests.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Position.
Yeah. Hi, Fiona. I was interested to know about your need to write about three sisters, because I have read the first two, and I think my memory is not what it used to be, but I think I remember the kind of reference. So you heard about the way, but it was almost in passing. So and they're even quite different genres. So we haven't. I'm interested in what the importance of the connection was for you across these three quite different books.
Yeah, at the time I didn't know that they were going to be such very different books. I'm personally always attracted to series and sequels and books that go on and worlds that you inhabit across several books. So I set the three sisters up almost to force myself to carry on with their stories. I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know what genre was going to pop up, but it was a way to commit myself to writing about all three of them and creating this kind of loose trilogy. And it is very loose. Each book is really a standalone story. You don't have to have read the others. But each book makes references to other characters in previous books, and they all kind of loosely connect together. But in a way, it was just sort of a commitment I made to myself.
Because it was an internal thing in a way, because they're not they don't have this sort of common look even, and it doesn't say in the or anything like that. So it's really more about motivation. Yeah.
On this question of the connections between characters and between different genres, if you do that, and particularly if you do that quite a bit, does that then create a sort of meta genre of the three characters or the four characters or whatever? Because once you have communication among genres, you're asking yourself, what does that then do to your genres? Then there are people by character.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm breaking boundaries here. I doubt it. I don't think anyone's going to follow in my footsteps. But yes, I mean, maybe it could be described as a kind of meta genre. I don't know. Lynn?
Hello, congratulations, I'm in awe. Question is, and I haven't read it, but you speak about the irony and this world, which I have no idea about. This is news to me, this new generation of action. So is this, in the sense that it might be an expose, an ironic expose of this particular class of thinking, is the book aimed at YA? If it is it also aimed at parents? And did you have to consider who the target market, you want to put that is in terms of the book, in terms of the deeper meanings?
Okay, so it's not YA at all. It's not aimed at kids or teenagers or anything like that. It is purely a book for adults. I think basically anybody can enjoy it, but the very specific target market is parents with children of any age who will look at it and go, ha ha, but also, aha, I recognize that. So, yeah, I mean, that was my idea of genre targeting in that case. Heather, were you going to? Oh,
Oh, no, Jen, sorry.
Jen.
Sorry.
So with reference to the fact that it's a very loose clinic, and I read all the, and you found out that under the standard, would you consider continuing and the series not being tricky and writing about the children, the twins, and their group of friends and how they cope with life when they're a little older, having been brought up with this sense of entitlement and how children like that actually cope in the real world without parents, championing their every move, and how do children like that actually manage when they have to go out there and live life in the real world without being there to go and speak to the principal every time something doesn't go their way. Would you consider continuing the series loosely?
That's a very interesting thought. The problem is that when I think too long and hard about those children, I get terribly depressed. I really feel awfully sorry for them. I mean, I have one child who becomes physically injured because of overdoing the whole sport thing. And I've known children like that, where they are now going to go through life with a chronic injury that they picked up at the age of 11 or whatever. And I find that terribly sad. And kids who, at the age of 9 or 10, have had an actual nervous breakdown. And also, it saddens me, depresses me. It's something that I want to turn away from rather than towards. So I'm not sure if I'm even the right person to tell that story, but it makes me feel a little bit physically ill to think of what these overstressed children might go through. But I do think that's part of the teenage rebellion, really ripping themselves away from that parental influence and forging their own way at high school. And that does happen. You don't see the mommies hovering at high school nearly as much as you see them hovering in primary school. And the kids do, they forcibly forge their own path in life. And I think that's where the hope lies, in their independence and their determination to get free of this influence and just walk their own destiny. So yeah, that's a very interesting idea, one I hadn't thought of before, but it's also a bit of a depressing subject.
It's interesting that we was actually kind of thinking about that too. Because one of the things that I have learned as a parent with age children is the limits of the control. You can't make anyone else practice it. Well, I can't do it. Whatever it is, it comes to a point where you just stop it. Anyway, do we have any more questions? Yeah, yes.
As an age-school principal, I found it fascinating. And much along the last question, to be parent-child protection, but the desperation of some parents to see how far some of them will go to get their children where they think they should be. They find how to live in the young, emotionally not mature enough and not coping. My father was a very well-known gynecologist who came and said, "There's no way, he cannot say, it's not failing." He said, "No, he as a gynecologist cannot have a child who has, he will pay anything to the teacher to push him and work with the child where he wants to be to get him through." Another one is a grade 6 level parent came and said, "Is my child getting a prize at the end of the year?" And I said, "I was able to tell you that." I said, "He has to get a prize." I said, "If I buy the prize, we will award it to him." So this desperation of parents coming through, and then what happens to these children. I just wonder, and I haven't read the book, and I'm dying to read it, because I'm not sure I recognize the parents. But generally speaking, I think most parents want the best for their children. And if they just let the teachers get on with their job, that's how it should be. That's just pushing and intimidating bullying of the teachers by the parents can be quite worrying. Thank you.
That definitely comes up.
Yes.
Hi, congratulations on the book. Your message is universal, also as a former principal, it says definitely universal. I don't think it's just white. I think it's anybody new. And the established parents won't get anybody new into the system. So those happen to be black, and that's why they're not allowed in. And I think that happens across the world. Having spoken and trained across the world, it's definitely a universal issue that's happening all over the world. And in fact, now they're going to term curling parents. The game that you play, that you rush with curling. The parents try and rush to keep him away so that the poor child will not have any difficulties or any challenges or anything like that. So that's the new term that we see, and that's what you're talking about, and it's just getting worse. It's gone from the tower mother to the helicopter parent to now the curling parent. And it seems that it's becoming worse and worse as time's going on. And now we're in a homeschool setting, and I'm seeing more children having nervous breakdowns, refusal, school refusals, being isolated because they don't fit in the box. And more the schools are expecting, that's going down. You have to fit into the box. If you don't fit into that box, the child will bring out before they even start that class. And parents are lost. Now, what do I do with my child? My child is just exacerbated it. That you've got children who are nervous to go out, now they're completely staying in their home. Just kind of started writing our books, and I just wanted to have to publish articles just from a different.
Okay. Yeah, I started at, what's it now? It must be about 12 years ago now. And that finally was accepted for publication was, you know, the last in a series of failed manuscripts that got nowhere and were rejected. But if you are looking at the traditional publishing route, I would say in South Africa, one doesn't need an agent. We are still in a fortunate position of being able to apply directly to publishers. Some of them have an open window of opportunity where they will accept unsolicited manuscripts. So keep your ear to the ground for when that happens. Some of them will accept manuscripts throughout the year. But my advice would be to go onto the website of any publisher that you're interested in and look very carefully at what their submission guidelines are. If they say, send us the first 3 chapters, don't send them the whole novel. It will just annoy them in fact. If they say, send us the first 30 pages, then don't send 35 pages. It will just make them cross. Just stick exactly to the guidelines. Keep submitting until something is finally picked up. And another piece of advice would be to make friends with critique partners, people in your life who maybe are at the same stage or writing level as you are, where you can do each other a favor of reading each other's manuscript and commenting honestly, not brutally honestly, but just honestly, commenting on and in that way, all of you will improve, and then soon you'll all be submitted to publishers.
One more. It's nice to be here.
I was interested in what the rest of the topic, and I was just wondering, we spoke about parents and children. But there's one thing I think we've not discussed now, but just like opinion on that, and that is turning education, school education of the mind. And the whole organization feel fire of the
Yes, that is why I deliberately made this a for-profit school. And as we all know, there are many of these for-profit schools throughout South Africa. And I think they do fill a very necessary gap in our education system. But it worries me when a child's education is reduced to a bottom line. Does that school make a profit at the end of the year or doesn't it? And that is the overriding consideration for those schools. And it worries me when a headmaster or headmistress is not called that anymore, but is called the CEO of the school. That concerns me. That's very corporate. That's very profit driven. And as soon as profit is the overriding motive, then the well-being of the children is no longer the overriding motive. Educating children broadly for education's sake is no longer the motive. And I know even schools that are run by sort of private trusts and that don't have to show profit at the end of the year, they are all under massive pressure to perform well, to sort of get high rankings, to attract a huge waiting list at their entry level. So all the schools are under pressure, but the for-profit schools are under a particularly unpleasant kind of pressure, which has to do with profit margins and not with the best interests of the child. Yeah, I think that's true.
And that does actually come up, in the narrative as well, because the school compliance that Fiona is writing about has got a sort of a competitive school, and it does sort of feed into that need to keep parents happy at all costs, to be able to sort of, who's got the best, whatever it is, the best sports team, the best ballet recital, or whatever. There's quite a direct link that is again around, fees, paying, the punters. One last one.
Just to feed into what you're saying, as a level principle, the parents who donate to the most to give the biggest donations, you have the stress of the corporates to give their children special treatment. Because those parents have got special allowances in the school because they have contributed to X or Y or Z. So that's a very important factor.
Yeah, that's a big part of my program.
What's really come up in these discussions is how many really interesting issues there are in the book. And that's the world of schools, education, and so on. I think it makes it a really interesting and a lot more conversations starting around that. I think it's really interesting that through fiction one can actually affect conversations and hopefully something change attitudes and so on as well. As well as being a really good book, a really nice read. Thank you. And thank you to Exclusive Books for the presentation. I just wanted to say, the COVID has been really tough on everyone. It's been very tough on publishers and very tough on book retailers. So thank you for coming out again and making this available to us. It's so lovely to do an in-person launch again, and thank you, Helen, always for doing such a great job of it. And I ask you please to there's a big table of books over there, please support local authors and local booksellers, and we greatly appreciate you coming out. I know it's the first time in ages for a lot of people. And yeah, it's really great to be back, and congratulations again, Fiona. I wish you all the best with this book and all the other ones that I know we're going to be seeing from you in the next couple of years. And yeah, keep on writing.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you for doing this.